Hey guys! I am currently driving to my interview, which I'm really excited about. I'm actually driving the day before my interview, so I'm staying over at a hotel so that the next morning I can be just completely relaxed and not have to worry about getting up in the morning and making sure that I avoid traffic or anything like that. My hotel is very close to the actual school, so I'm really excited about that. And I have my interview clothes all packed and with me and ready to go. So I just wanted to share with you guys that I'm driving there now, and it's the day before, and I'm really excited, and I can't wait. Hey guys, it is a beautiful 6:30 in the morning. I know that's not super early, but it's pretty early, I would say, and I'm just pretty much getting up and starting to get ready for my interview. So I'm gonna go take a shower real quick, and then I'm gonna go put all my interview attire on, put my makeup on, before I go get some coffee and before I get my hair done. So I'm getting up also really early. My interview isn't until 10:30 technically, is when the whole day starts, but I'm getting up early because I want to actually review some of my notes for questions. Just makes me feel a little bit more comfortable and confident in my preparation for the interview. So I'm gonna go get started getting ready so I'm not late, and I will keep you guys updated. All right, so this is the interview materials that I had with me the day of my interview. And the two materials on top here, this lovely notepad and this folder, were given to me by the medical school that I had my interview at. And essentially this notepad right here is just like any other notepad, has a beautiful, beautiful color. But basically it's just a notepad with a bunch of empty pages and a pen, so that during the actual interview day you can take notes on the presentations that occur. So these are presentations from like financial aid, from student affairs, from potentially the dean, him or herself, and from any other noteworthy people that come to talk about opportunities at the school. And so I thought it was really nice that they actually gave us the notepad with a pen to take these notes, because I wasn't expecting that. I actually brought my own. As you can see, this black kind of case below all of these. So I took some notes there with this. We also got this folder here that had a lot of information about things that you can do at this school. So a lot of opportunities in the curriculum for research, for community service, for global public health, for any kind of opportunity that you might want that's outside of the classroom. They also talked about the curriculum a little bit, and they talked about the schedule in terms of calendar days for the medical students from the first year, and they also talked about the mission and values of the school. And I thought it was really, really nice of them to compile all this information. They also actually included match day results for their most recent class, and they included apartment living, they included some crime statistics of the area. So it was really, honestly, a great way to get to know the school wholesomely, in terms of not just going there for academics, but also getting to know the area and knowing what kind of community you're going to be making an impact in. So I thought that was really, really awesome. And then aside from that, I told you I had kind of a, I guess, interview folder. I forget what this is called, honestly, but I had this with me on my interview day. And you can just ignore this red tag here. I put it on there so that in case this got lost, I would know that it's mine and wouldn't mix it up with someone else's. This is a great impression to have this with you, to be so prepared like this. And if I open this up here, you can see that I actually already had prepared stuff inside this when I brought it with me. So I have my notebook here with a bunch of different questions that I wrote to ask during my actual interview. So come prepared with questions, because then you won't have to think about them on the spot, and you'll be able to address all the points that you want to in terms of getting to know the school better. I had 3 pens here just in case one of them ran out of ink. Green is not my favorite color, contrary to what it looks like here. And I also have this handy dandy pocket here. And so I have 2 papers that I had in here. The first one was actually just my outline or organization of thoughts for potential interview questions. So I brought that with me so I could prepare in the morning before my interview, and even last minute if I needed to during the interview, if there was downtime. But honestly, I really didn't find any downtime in the interview process or the interview day, and I will discuss more of that in just a second. But I also brought with me a copy of my AMCAS. And for those of you who don't know, AMCAS is the primary application. There's 2 applications that you need to send in to medical schools before you can get potentially an interview. And AMCAS I brought with me just to be able to reference any of my activities in case an interviewer brought up something very obscure, even though I highly suggest really knowing your application back by the back of your hand at this point. But I also brought it in case I ran into someone who didn't know me and I needed to quickly give them information about me so that they could look at it. So you never know who you're going to run into with these interviews, who knows your application, who doesn't. Sometimes they're open applications, meaning the interviewer will have already read your application prior to meeting with you, and other times they're closed applications, meaning the interviewer will have no idea your background or your experiences. And so that's why I thought to bring this, and that's what I kept in here. So I highly suggest getting one of these yourself. It makes you look really professional. You will have less stress because you kind of have all of your information in one place, and it's just a really great way to be organized and feel confident in going to your interview and feeling like you're going to nail it. So that being said, let's get straight to the actual interview. This is my interview day schedule. I was given this in the folder that you saw in the previous clip. And basically this was the actual schedule. So it was from 10:45 a.m. to 4:45 p.m. And basically this was, as you can see, a non-stop day from 10:45 until 4:45 p.m. And we had different things going on. We had an information session in the beginning with some of the faculty members and one of the admission committee directors. We also had then afterwards lunch with current students. And this was a great opportunity to actually talk to the students and get real perspective on what is the school actually like. Then we had a break, which this break kind of didn't really become a break because we ended up talking more with these students and it ran into our break, and by the time we had this break occur, it was almost time to interview. So at this school, there were 2 interviewers that I had, and they were 2 doctors, so different kinds of doctors. One was an actual medical doctor and one was a dental doctor, and both of them had a lot of experience in their fields, and both of them had great perspectives, and it was great conversations to have with them. Those were individual interviews, and as you can see, they were separated by this one little break. So 2 interviews. The interviews lasted for 45 minutes, and honestly, 45 minutes doesn't seem like any amount of time when you actually get down to talking with them, because these interviews were not the kind of stressful interviews where you're, picking at little bones to try to get a conversation to flow. It really was a flowing conversation. Then we had another break, and then we had the meeting with the Associate Dean of Admissions, and this was great. It was a group meeting, so essentially all the interviewees met in the same conference room to speak with the Associate Dean. Then we had a survey of our experience, which was actually surprising. I didn't realize they were going to survey us. And then we had a building tour from students. So that's a quick overview. Now let me actually dive into each of these. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I am going to talk to you about the interview. So a medical school interview. I'm going to be following the schedule here that I have in my hand of what I just showed you in a previous clip, basically what each step was in my interview day and what I did. So you guys have an idea of what you might be having at your interview day, or what a medical school interview day is really all about. And so let's jump right in. Like I showed in the previous clip, at about 10:45 we started our interview day. And let me preface this by saying that there were 7 other interviewees with me that day. So 8 interviewees in total for that interview day. And we were all ushered into this conference room that fit about 12 people. And that's where we spent a lot of our time during the day. We started our information session in that conference room, and we just went around the table and introduced ourselves with one of the admissions committee members. And it was really great because we got to know a little bit about each other, where we had our education, where we were working currently, what we had done previously, in terms of like any kind of fun activities or fun facts about ourselves. So it was almost kind of like reminiscent of freshman orientation, where you do all these icebreaker activities. But it was very quick and painless in that sense, and I really enjoyed it. And it was also a great way to actually talk with the admissions committee person, because he was the one that was facilitating our conversation and even participating by adding his own remarks if he was familiar with where we grew up, or if he was familiar with the kind of work that we did. And so I thought that was a really nice way to start out the interview day, because it helped to kind of decrease stress and just really focus on it's a conversation. The next thing that was on our agenda was lunch from 12 to 1. So we went straight from this information session that was mostly conversational, getting to know each other, and just very basic information about the school that you might already know if you've done a lot of research on this school prior to the interview day. And so the lunch with current medical students was fabulous. We had 4 medical students come in and eat Panera catered lunch with us, which was also a nice bonus at interview day. They give you lunch, and basically the lunch was like either a salad, a sandwich, and it came with chips and a cookie. So that was really nice. And during this hour, we got to ask medical students anything that we wanted to. So we could ask them about, what is it like to live in this area? Where do most students live? What is the school really like? Do you enjoy your classes? Do you enjoy your classmates? Those are all really key questions to ask, and they were all addressed at my interview. I would suggest asking another question too, which relates to student quality of life. When is the exam schedule? Or when are exams typically held? So for example, if exams are held on Fridays, then you will have a weekend after a Friday exam that is basically free. So you'll be able to unwind after studying for that exam. But if you have exams that are on Mondays, then you will always have weekends busy, in the sense of you'll have to study for a Monday exam, and you'll never get that extra weekend off. So that's an important question to ask that definitely, if you're looking into student quality of life, is something you should think about asking at your own interview one day. Something else that we also talked about was a lot about opportunities for students. So what kind of opportunities were on campus? What were these students involved in? And a lot of students were actually involved in community service and research, which was awesome, because that's something I want to still have as a medical student. I want to have both service and research opportunities. And there are some schools that are more research focused, some medical schools that are more community service focused. But this school that I interviewed at was actually kind of a balance of both. And I really appreciated that in someone who, speaking for myself, am very much well-rounded in that sense and want to continue that kind of well-rounded aspect through medical school. So definitely make sure before the interview you know what kinds of questions you want to ask students in relation to how they're experiencing medical school. Something else that stood out to me about this school that I personally think is one of the most important things to look for in a medical school is that the faculty and students were extremely friendly, and beyond that, they were extremely supportive. This school had collaboration as one of its key elements in its mission statement, and I really value that as someone who is a very team-oriented person. And so I went into the interview really expressing how much I enjoyed the fact that their mission really deeply resonated with me in the sense that I wanted to be a part of a team. I wanted to be in an environment that would be supportive and that I could develop strong faculty mentorships like I did in college. And I wanted to be able to add to the learning community of the students and use my own attributes and experiences to help students better prepare to be physicians in this diverse world. And in the same way, I wanted to be able to learn from my fellow classmates and really gain their perspectives on things that I might not be aware of. And so it was really, really interesting to have this conversation with particularly my second interviewer, but just in general to see this kind of theme. What's great about talking to medical students too is to really get their honest perspectives on what was really going on in medical school. So they talked about a student-run medical clinic that a lot of students were involved in as community service. They talked about research opportunities with within the medical school and within also another Ivy League medical school that is close by to this medical school. And they talked about the camaraderie of the class in general. And I really appreciated hearing all of this positive feedback from the students and their experiences at the medical school so far. So at this point, I was really itching to get to my interviews. I was like, I really want to share my enthusiasm for this school. And that's something that you want to kind of just get in your mind. Even if you're not a super enthusiastic person normally, you want to let your inner excitedness about being here at this school, you want to share it with your interviewers. I mean, you want to share it all day because you want to show you're really, really excited about the school, but you want to particularly show it with your interviewers because those are the people that are going to be vouching for you when the committee comes together and decides whether or not to accept or waitlist or reject you. And so looking back to my schedule, my first interview was at 1:15 and it was with a gastroenterologist, a retired gastroenterologist. And he had been practicing for many, many years prior to retiring, so it was really fascinating to see his perspective on medicine as it's changed over time. Basically, they took all the interviewees back and they separated us into our assigned interview rooms. And it was a very small room with a table and 2 chairs. The interviewer was already there. I immediately gave them a very strong handshake and smiled. And the first thing that I said when I sat down with them was, I said, "Thank you so much for taking the time to meet with me today. I'm really excited to be here." And by doing that, it really shows that you are engaged and you're ready for this conversation and you want to be here. Once I had greeted him, he greeted me as well, and he was excited to also have me there and to speak with me. And during that interview time, there were basically several questions that he addressed to me. And I knew there were several questions because he had a notepad of his own with notes that he had taken down prior. And there weren't actually a lot of notes, which was good and bad in my head. I was like, wait, why didn't he take down a lot of notes on my application? But maybe there were just specific things that he wanted to talk about. Honestly, I thought my interview lasted for 5 minutes. So you can see how 45 minutes may seem daunting, but it really isn't. And so when I was talking with this gastroenterologist, the first thing he asked me was, what do you like about this area? And so I was familiar with this area prior to going to this interview. And so that question at first was I was surprised because I was like, oh, I would think he would ask me something about my application. But it goes to show that they can ask you really about anything. And so I answered that question, and we actually got off topic a little bit into my home state and where he had actually almost taken a job in my home state and near an area that I lived in my home state. So it really just was cool to see how the conversation really flowed, and it wasn't just a straight, here's a question, now answer, here's another question, now answer. It really was getting to know me as a person. The next question that he asked me after that was, why do you want to go into medicine? Why here? And that is a classic question that medical schools can ask you. Why do you want to attend our program? Why are you interested in coming here? And that's something that I highly, highly suggest preparing for ahead of time, at least organizing your thoughts and keeping some bullet points of what you like about their mission statement or what you like about their curriculum or opportunities and why you think you could benefit them and they could benefit you. So this question was really very easy and fun for me to talk about because I really did truly enjoy their school's mission, all the opportunities. I really could see myself there. And so I was really, really excited to talk to him about this and give him specific reasons. So what were those reasons? For this school in particular, I really enjoyed the fact that there was a collaborative environment. The students and the faculty were extremely engaging and supportive of each other. And they developed strong mentoring relationships. Something that I really, really want in a medical school and as a medical student. I know that the road is going to be long and hard, and I want to be able to develop those kinds of relationships that will help me get through this journey or this part of the journey. Something else that I really enjoyed was that this school had a lot of community service and research opportunities together. There was a lot of flexibility in terms of how you wanted to approach those and how involved you wanted to be. And so someone who was very well-rounded in both of those areas, I wanted to be able to continue that. And then I talked about specific parts of the curriculum. I'm a neuroscience nerd, as you might know, and I really, really enjoyed that they had a lot of specific neuroscience opportunities for me to explore that passion even further. So those are key things that you want to already have in your mind, and you can already know about these through researching the school. Just online, there's so much information. I highly suggest doing it so you can actually wow and impress your interviewers with how much you know about the school already. We basically just had 45 minutes of talking about that, and at the end, he actually asked me if there were any questions that I had to ask him. And at this point, you should be bringing out that black notepad that I had showed you before, where you just have all of your questions pre-written, so that way you can sort through them and see what you want to ask depending upon the tone of the interview. So I had prepared 20 questions, or maybe 30 questions, I can't remember. I'd pre-written all of those in my notepad, and I didn't have any time to ask like half of them. We were probably like already 5 minutes over the interview, and I'd only asked 3 questions. And this really goes to show how quick they are, how conversational they get, so you lose track of time. And it's really just you talking with another person. They want to get to know you, and it was surprising in that sense for me. The next interview I had was with a faculty member at this school, and she was in dental medicine. She was amazing. She was such an engaged listener, and she really had great feedback for me in terms of how I described my interest in medicine and what I really liked about this school. And I really could connect with her on these experiences that I've had. She was interested in a few particular experiences, like my self-designed class on music, medicine, and the brain. I had done a lot of community service with this self-designed class, teaching elementary students and high school students, and I incorporated a lot of my anatomy and physiology experience with my interest in neuroscience and music, and so it was very multidisciplinary, and we had a great conversation about that. We also talked about actually her experience as a faculty member and what she liked a lot about this school, and I was really surprised how back and forth the conversation was. Again, it was like this for both interviewers or both interview situations, but I felt I could really connect with the second interview more so than the first interview. Though I think both went well, I really was able to connect with the second interviewer a little bit more, and I knew exactly what was going to happen now that I had the first interview. And it was a great experience. She asked me that question. She asked me my interests beyond medicine, so what did I like to do for fun? And that's always a great question because you get to talk about your hobbies. And it was a great experience overall. Again, 45 minutes went really quickly. She also asked me the same question at the end, is there anything else that you'd like to ask me? I did ask her a few questions, a few specific questions about the school's specific opportunities, and it was just a great experience overall. We ended up actually pretty much hugging at the end, And that's when you know you've made a really solid impression at the interview, when you can really connect and you feel that connection with the person. So definitely be as enthusiastic as you can, bring specific points up about the school, and have pre-written questions so that way you feel totally prepared and confident going into this opportunity to prove to them and show them why you are as good in person as you are on paper. After those 2 interview experiences, we, as an interviewee group as a whole, so all 8 of us, all 8 of the interviewees, had a break, and then 10-minute break. So it really didn't feel like 10 minutes. It felt like 2 minutes. And then we went back into the large conference room that we were initially in for the information session. And we basically sat there and we met with the Associate Dean of Admissions. And the Associate Dean of Admissions was such a pleasant gentleman. And he actually was had a neuroscience PhD, so I was really excited about that as a neuroscience major. And he was able to actually interweave a lot of the similarities between all the interviewees together. And he talked to each of us individually within the group. So he was able to ask specific things. He asked about my work, he asked about my summer, he asked what I was doing in terms of what I did over the summer and what I was doing working. He mentioned some of my research, and he also mentioned my musical award performance at Carnegie Hall. And it was great to see actually that he connected that to someone else in the room had also got a musical award performance at Carnegie Hall. So it was cool to see the connections being made between people. And I really appreciated that conversation because he also asked us if we had any questions for him. Having those pre-written questions for the interviewers, maybe asking a few of those to the dean as well, because then it shows that you want to have a conversation, you want to be engaged, you want to be actively involved, and making sure that you're paying attention to the other interviewees' responses and questions, because you want to show that you are caring about your potential future classmates and that you also want to be engaged with them. And so that was pretty much the group interview. They had us take a survey on their iPads. They gave us iPads about our experience at the interview. And I thought that was actually great. It's a great way for them to continue improving their interview days. And about that time, it was around 4:30, we were given a tour of the building by some of the medical students that we'd had lunch with earlier. And so this was great. We got to see around the building. It was a brand new building. We got to see the cadaver lab, not the actual cadavers, but a lot of the rooms that the students learned in. So they had the classes in. We saw a lot of the study rooms. We saw the library. We saw the cafeteria. We saw just a bunch of different places. And it was great to see what we could be stepping into, what I could be stepping into as a medical student. And after that, we pretty much were dismissed. We were told we could just head home and that we would hear back from them as soon as possible. And that's probably the hardest part, is when I left that interview, I was so happy to be there that I got a little bit disappointed after I left, realizing that I was going to have to wait a long time to hear back from what had happened at this interview, especially because this interview happened so early on in the interview season. The interview season is usually from September to March, and sometimes medical schools will start interviews earlier depending on if they're a rolling admission school or if they're an early decision program. Mine was just a regular decision MD program, but I had an earlier interview. I was very fortunate to have that. But on the flip side, I won't be able to find out before October 15th. So October 15th is the first day that has been established as a national guideline for all medical schools in the US to follow, that they cannot release acceptances or rejections, they cannot release any kind of decisions until October 15th. And so the waiting period, the waiting game is still going on, and sometimes it takes a while for a person to even get a first interview. And so really, if you're in the application process right now, do not fret. There's still a lot of time for you to get an interview, multiple interviews, And if you've already gotten an interview like me, congratulations, we've completed our first interview, and it's really exciting but also nerve-wracking. And just understand that this is a process, and it's something that I have to continually remind myself. This is a process that we're going through. It's a long process, a year-long process essentially. And so it's really important to just keep busy, to keep your mind focused on the ultimate goal, which is going into medicine, and knowing that whatever happens is going to be a good outcome for you. There's going to be a good outcome, and staying positive about that is really, really key to, I think, staying sane throughout this process. So that was pretty much my interview experience. If you guys have any questions, please let me know, because I really want to share my experiences with you, and hopefully they can help you better understand this pre-medical journey to eventually medical journey. So thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. Give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and subscribe if you like more content. Thanks guys. Bye.